All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Aware Athlete Show. Today's guest is Alan Lazaros, and Alan has an impactful story to tell. He has a couple of profound or more major life-changing events, uh, and he's going to tell us how that impacted his life and where he is today. So, Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I always consider it quite an honor to be able to share my story and some of the things that I've learned. I think it's really important, and I really appreciate it.
All right. Yeah, I'm excited to get started here, and I think it's very important to share these personal stories myself too. So I see that you lost your father when you were about two. Now that would not be at a very verbal state, maybe pre-verbal or verbal, whatever. But so your memories of that would be influenced by that fact. I lost my dad when I was 43, which I consider very young right now, but he had had a lot of impact on my life. So losing your father at that age would have a different kind of impact, where you hadn't gotten to know him very well, but it had a big impact on your life. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing to understand when I share this is I didn't really, to your point, I didn't really understand any of this. So 9 years ago, I got into self-improvement and I started to listen to podcasts and that kind of thing. And all these people that told their story, it sounded like they had it all figured out. And so I think I had a lot figured out. And I think statistically speaking, I had a lot more figured out than most people because I was always so curious. But when I tell this story, it's very important to understand that this is like, it's like when you're a kid and you see a movie and then you rewatch the movie when you're an adult and you
Yeah.
realize all these things that you hadn't realized.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
exactly what this is. So I think it's important to give that disclaimer up front. It might seem eloquent now, but trust me, I didn't understand and connect all these dots until later.
Yeah, that's
So yeah,
exactly what I would
yeah.
expect. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when I was 2 years old, to your point, my father passes away in a car accident. So he was 28 years old at the time. And I had an older sister who was 6. And my mom and my birth father and my mom, his name was John. And they decided she would be a stay-at-home mom and he would be the breadwinner. And so he would work and she would stay at home and take care of the kids. So when he passed away, my mom was 31, he was 28, I was 2, my sister was 6. She didn't know what to do at that stage, and she ended up getting with my stepfather. So my real last name is actually McCorkle. So my stepfather's last name is Lazarus. So from age 3 to 14, I had a stepfather named Steve Lazarus. And during that time, I playfully refer to that time in my life as boats and BS. And it was the late 90s, early 2000s, and the economy was booming, dot-com bubble. My stepfather worked for a company called AGFA, and he did very well there. And I got Dreamcast and Xbox, and we were upper middle class. We had apartment buildings. We had a yacht. We had, snowmobiles. We had trucks and cars, and my mom drove a BMW, and we were fairly well off, but they didn't get along well.
Mm.
And so things looked good on the surface, but behind the scenes, not so great. On top of that, my birth father's side of the family was an Irish Catholic family, and it was Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette. There was 6 kids, big Irish Catholic family. My mom and pop up, my grandparents. But when my father passed away, my birth father, and we got together with my stepfather, we kind of stopped hanging out with and seeing my birth father's side of the family. And so 14 happens, my stepdad leaves. He takes 90% of the income with him. And so we go from upper middle class to basically I get free lunch at school now because our income is so low. I am shopping at thrift stores, Salvation Army for clothing. And I went from, I can't wait to go to my dream college, WPI, Worcester Polytechnic Institute. It's like a little mini MIT, very expensive school, $50,000 a year, to I don't even know if I'm going to be able to go. Even if I get in, I don't know how I'm going to go. I'm 14 years old. Stepfather leaves, takes his entire family with him, his whole extended family. I haven't seen any of them since.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Same time, sister moves out. I'm 14, she's 17. She moves out with her older boyfriend. Same time, my mom gets in a fight with her sister, my Aunt Sandy. And she ostracizes us from that side of the family. Now, it wasn't until my 30s that I started realizing this. I'm 36, 35 now. I often joke, say, I hope to hit puberty at 36. I look very young. But in my 30s, I started doing therapy. I started reflecting a lot. I started to really understand this. And so now I'm looking back going, by the time I'm 14 years old, I went from doing well financially to completely broke. And I lost 3 families. And so then it's just me and my mom. So my stepdad, when he left, he got the apartment buildings and the yacht. We got the house and the dog. Sister moves out. So now it's just bootstrap. It's how are we going to do this? And so I did the only thing I knew how to do. And this I now realize is actually a trauma response, by the way. But when life is painful, you kind of have these 4 trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So fight is fight someone else or fight to be better. Flight is run away, avoid, escape, alcohol, drugs, whatever. Freeze is do nothing, disassociate, escape into books or movies. I did a lot of that. Movies in particular. And then fawn is just appeased. Do whatever mommy or daddy wants to get love and safety. So fortunately for me, and I didn't know this until later on, that's the point that I need to keep reiterating, my trauma response was aim higher, work harder, get smarter. Mm-hmm. Fortunately. And that ends up later on being such a good thing because your adversity ends up becoming your advantage. Here's the problem. Not everyone has that trauma response because not everyone believes in themselves. I used to wonder, why are there 2 siblings where one goes one way and the other one goes the other way, even though they both had the same challenges, very similar challenges in childhood? It's self-belief. If you don't believe in yourself and you don't believe in your own brighter future, why are you going to transform that adversity into advantage? So here's what I did. I said, okay, I'm going to get straight A's in high school. I got what's called the President's Award. It's actually behind me, signed by George W. Bush. And essentially what that means is you get straight A's through all of high school for every report card. Because I needed financial aid. I needed scholarships. How am I going to go to my dream school?
Yeah.
And so I did. I got every scholarship, every award. I was the obnoxious kid at the award ceremony that never sat down. It's just like calling my name over and over again, which I realize now made me very unpopular. But anyways, I get into my dream school, become a computer engineer, get my master's in business, and then I go into corporate. Now I'm in corporate and I'm going from basically broke college student to really well off really quickly. I mean, I worked for iRobots, Instada Technologies, Tyco Safety Products, Simplex Grinnell, Oz Development. I had an interview at SpaceX and I ended up going home for family stuff. And I worked for eventually a company called Cognex. Cognex is an industrial automation equipment company that sells machine vision, which is kind of the eyes of robotics, into manufacturing facilities. So I did an inside sales engineering team there. And then I also got promoted to outside sales engineering. So now I manage my own territory. I'm in my early 20s. I paid off $84,000 worth of college debt in a single year. I bought a $5,000 car in cash. I have no mortgage, no kids, none of that. And I'm making almost $200,000 a year. I have $150,000 invested in Vanguard in a investment account with all tech stocks, tech companies, including a lot of Cognex. And so I'm off to the races going for my dream. So I had 2 dreams as a kid, and I now realize this is really weird, but I had 2 dreams as a kid. I had a lot of dreams, but 2 main ones. The crossroads for me at 14 was I'm either going to do lawyer, politician, president, or I'm going to do engineer, MBA, CEO of a tech company like my hero, Steve Jobs. I decided to go with the engineer, MBA, CEO of a tech company. And ironically, I actually am the CEO of a tech company now, which is cool because I went off that path, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. So now I'm 26 years old and I have more money than I know what to do with. I have a beautiful girlfriend, and I have all of the external success that I thought mattered. And it does. And it does. But I was an achiever who was improvement oriented, but I was professionally developed without personal development. I'm 26. I'm up in New Hampshire with my little cousin. We're playing Call of Duty, and then we go to TGI Fridays. We're not partying or drinking or anything like that. I look down at the GPS. This is a dark winter night. The snowbanks were covering the signs. It was such a bad winter. I end up on the wrong side of the road. I was supposed to yield and didn't. I'm on the wrong side of the road. I look up and I see in front of me what I think is a Mack truck. Big, bright lights. Fortunately, it was not a Mack truck. It was a lift-kitted pickup truck. But in that moment, when I thought it was a Mack truck, I had that moment of, there is no version. Computer engineer, okay, no possibility we survive this. This is it. It's the end. Faced mortality fully. Fortunately, it was a lift-kitted pickup truck. There's a lot of those in New Hampshire. And I was driving a 2004 Volkswagen Passat that I bought in $5,000 cash. And this is a German-engineered steel trap of a car. I used to call this car the tank because it's such a heavy vehicle. It's a good, safe, heavy vehicle. I'm convinced that that car saved my life. Both airbags did deploy, me and my little cousin. So he hurt his knee on the airbag. I hurt my face on the airbag, but we were okay. Now the car is absolutely totaled. I've seen pictures of my dad's car, and I've seen pictures of my car, and they don't look very different. Yeah. So I'm 26 at the time. My dad died at 28 in a car wreck. So for me, my little cousin was tweeting about it, still invincible teenager. I was questioning my existence. I was questioning everything. The man I became, the choices I made, the drinking too much and too often, the not taking my health and fitness seriously, the impact I didn't have or did have. And I was filled with regret. Tons of regret. So much regret. Like, oh. And I always say I made horrible choices. I don't think I made worse choices than most people. I just admit it. All of us make terrible decisions, especially if we grow up in tough environments. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. But if you admit that you made poor choices and you feel that, now you have a chance to transform. And so I got all the humble pie all at once. And I got the second chance my dad never got. And so I flipped the script, baby. I turned it and I said, you know what? I'm never going to improve and achieve at the expense of fulfillment ever again. I'm never going to focus on external results over internal fulfillment. And that's when I turned my improvement orientation completely into self-improvement. And I got obsessed with self-improvement. I'm talking health and fitness. I'm talking every personal development book I can get my hands on. I'm talking coaching, mentors, therapy. And that was 9 years ago. And now I have a whole business called Next Level University that's entirely built on this idea of being successful and fulfilled, being personally developed and professionally developed. Because I think we're all split in these two sort of big categories of, you have these professionally developed, successful people in the economy that have best resume, best cover letter, best LinkedIn account, but they're emotionally immature. And sometimes they take better care of their Porsche than their own family. Yeah. And then you've got these heart-driven, wonderful people that are holistic and emotionally mature and in touch with their emotions and healing their stuff and collaborative, but they don't win in the economy. And their careers are not great. And I'm sitting there going, how is this possible? And in the 21st century, we have to be ambidextrous. I was professionally developed, but not personally developed. And so I had to focus on personal development. So the joke that I always make is, if you want a coach, you need a therapist. If you want a therapist, you need a coach, because success matters too. I was successful without fulfillment, and that sucked. And then I went all the way past broke, and I was deeply fulfilled, but I was broke. I lost all my success as a broke entrepreneur, and I was fulfilled but not successful. And that sucked almost just as much. And so how do we create a life where you can be successful and fulfilled, professionally developed and personally developed, holistic health, wealth, life, and love? And that's what my whole world is built on now.
So before you had the accident, what was your feeling about your success? If you were you honest with yourself about it at that point before the accident, or?
Not enough. Not enough. So honesty with self is such a thing, right? Because we all want to distort our own reality to try to make it better than it really is. It's a defense mechanism, and we all have it. So, for example, one simple example is putting your parents on a pedestal. We all do it. I mean, if you were to really look at your parents for who and what they really are, some of them would look better and some of them would look worse. And when we're kids, we think our parents know everything. And then we grow up and realize, oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's that phase. Yeah.
Whoa. And here's the thing. If you're wrong about one thing, you're wrong about everything. And I was wrong about myself. I was smarter than I thought. I didn't know it. I was less emotionally well-developed than I thought. I was emotionally immature and didn't know it. So what happens when you go through the world thinking you're not that smart, but thinking you're emotionally mature? When in reality, I was actually super smart and emotionally immature.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it takes time to learn that. And that's what wisdom is. The difference between knowledge and wisdom, I think, is experience and reflection and just failing and being bludgeoned with the truth.
Right. Right. And we all get bludgeoned with the truth in one way or another, but then there has to be that reflection. So immediately you were getting all A's in school. That was good because you needed to do that to get that financial aid and so on. So that was really good. To get all A's in school requires a certain amount of dedication and focus, and those are really good things. It also requires knowing how to play the game, which is, in other words, you have a 600-page textbook and you have a 4 or 6 week, 8-week course, whatever it is, and no one in their right mind would expect you to know everything that's in that 600-page textbook, but you do have to know what's on the test.
Yeah.
And so very, very much you are playing a game. So you're learning some wonderful things if you are learning that dedication, that focus, and that intensity. But you're also learning some very superficial things.
Yep.
And so comment on that, because the whole path can take that superficial turn, and that's what you've said already.
Yeah.
But
in hindsight, it's very clear to me that I was results driven, but not as character driven. So I was never a bad person, and I never went out of my way to hurt anybody, but I would cheat if I had to. I would color outside the lines. And I also know that that's my nature. I'm definitely a rebel by nature. I'm not like if you were to label me as think differently, I would say I'm on the far end of that for sure. Like I never wanted to do anything conventional, and rules always, they didn't make sense to me. And I think that comes with owning more of who I am. And I think that, I don't want to throw the word genius out there, but I think that as I've become older and older and older, and I've reflected more and more and more on, now I coach people all over the world. We all have a certain genius about us. Maybe not all of us, but a lot of us. And we don't think anything of it because it's always been the case. So I used to walk around the world thinking everyone was lazy and unintelligent, when in reality, I was really hardworking and really intelligent. I just didn't know. And so to comment about that is, I got straight A's, but learning wasn't the goal.
Yeah.
Straight A's was the goal.
And learning in the system is not 100% the goal either.
Exactly. I really do wish that I was mature enough to realize that getting straight A's was never the real goal. The real goal was growth.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until after 26 that I realized that growth and contribution need to be the focal point, need to be the goal. And then learning is a part of that, and results will come.
Yeah.
I used to chase results at the expense of my character and my core values. And now I'm much more focused on growth and contribution, and then results and fulfillment being a byproduct of that.
Yeah. So without knowing it, you were doing both, but you didn't have the clarity that you have now.
Yep. Yeah. I learned a lot, but that was never the goal. It was the A's were the goal and learning was a byproduct. I wish learning was the goal and A's could be the byproduct.
Yeah, which they could have been. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, you're talking about something that's dear to my heart because we don't know ourselves. When we're born, how can we know ourselves? So there has to be a process. A
Yeah.
two-year-old doesn't know himself.
Not yet.
No, he's just beginning to explore the world.
Hmm.
Has had no reason to try to really go deep and make any sense out of it.
Hmm.
And and then as a two-year-old, you're completely dependent on your parents. You're certainly not going to walk out the door and go get a job and say, "Hey, I don't need you." At 2 years
Yeah.
old, no, not going to happen.
Yeah. And if you do, you're going to get very, very humbled.
Yeah,
Obviously, at two, you can't, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's where we start out. That's part of the life process.
Hmm.
And what you're saying is a goal of mine to help other people get to the place where they know what they really have inside. I
Hmm.
I was in a job for a long time, and I thought there was no way I could quit it until I finally realized that the only reason I couldn't quit it was because I was being stubborn about how I related to my environment and my ego. And
Hmm.
I actually had tremendous resources within myself that I could do whatever I wanted.
Hmm.
And that is not something we start off knowing.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful thing. It's good work you are doing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So very early in your story, you talked about all these family situations. And so, and then you talked about, some people are very successful in their business. They're not very successful emotionally or with their families or whatever. And I certainly see that. You could take so many examples. I don't need know if I have to use one. But that being the case, can you comment on how important it is for us to relate emotionally to ourselves? We must do that, and then to the world, and how if you have a relationship, let's say you are a parent because you experienced having parents, how important is it for you to not be violent with yourself in terms of your own criticism and to not bring that into a family situation and to be able to communicate clearly enough that it's not a matter of defending egos, but it is really a matter of listening.
Yeah. You know, I was so not when I first met my beautiful girlfriend Emilia. I call her my future wife, and people always say, "Congratulations, we're not engaged yet, but she's my future wife. She's my penguin." I call her my penguin. Penguins only have one mate for life, so she's my penguin.
Yeah.
But anyways, so when I first met her, I remember thinking, and this was very intuitive. I said, "You're going to teach me the internal world, and I'm going to teach you the external world." So again, everything's sort of righty lefty. All of us are righty or lefty. I understand the economy. I understand finance. I understand business, micro and macroeconomics. Like all that stuff just clicks for me. I walk into a Panera and it's like, okay, definitely invest in this company. And then I walk into certain companies. It's like, nope, this I can see the numbers. So there's four modalities of thinking. The rarest I think is math. So I think in numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who communicates with me can kind of tell because I have a different modality of thinking. Everything is numbers to me. Mathematics is just the way I think. And so I'm a good speaker for computer engineers. I do really well with people like that. The three others are energy. Energy is the next rarest. This is reading vibe. This is reading energy. So, for example, physically you're older, but you have a higher vibe. And so that's just something that I'm tuned into thanks to Emilia. Then you've got words. The other thinking modality is words. Most people think in words and conversations. Okay. And words are what construct emotions. So if I have you, have a conversation in your head with a friend, you can construct emotions based on that. Words create concepts, concepts create emotions. It's a whole thing. And then you've got the last one, which is pictures, images, imagination. We all have all four, but we have one really big one. So my really big one is numbers, mathematics. So I was the guy who could go to all the calculus classes without going to a single class and just ace the test, even after partying. I was this one of those weirdos who just math and science always came super easy to. I call it STEM BIF: science, technology, engineering, mathematics, business, and finance. It's just there. So when I met Emilia, I intuitively said, I'm going to teach you the external world, and you're going to teach me the internal world. The reason why professionally developed people do well in the economy is they understand how the economy works. They understand the skills necessary in the 21st century. So they do well financially, but their relationships suffer. Do you know how many computer engineering friends I have that are winning in the economy but have unhealthy relationships? Mm. And then do you know how many people I know that are holistically, emotionally connected and wonderful at relationships, but they don't know how to build a resume? And so I saw the world in these two buckets. And my job, my goal is to help people become ambidextrous. So I have 22 clients right now, and my job is to help them be successful and fulfilled. That's it. It's all I'm really doing. It's called business coaching, but really, sometimes I have to help you align your business with who you really are. Other times I have to help you actually scale and grow your business because it already is aligned with who you are, but you don't know how to grow it. So to answer your original question, all of us are either internally well-developed or externally well-developed. There's three things that you need to study, in my honest opinion. And I used to be bashful about this, but I'm just going to give it. You need to understand yourself, self-awareness. I didn't understand self-awareness at all until after 26. You need to know how you work and why you work that way. If I'm great at math and I don't think I'm great at math, I'm going to walk around thinking everyone else is better at math than they really are. Mm. Okay. That's like having a GPS that has the wrong data and you're driving into a lake all the time. Self-awareness, number one. Number two, others. You need to understand human beings. You have to understand other people, how people work and why they work that way. Different types of people, different modalities, inner, outer, all of it. Psychology, neuroscience, physiology, right? The study of human beings, biology. And then the last one is the world. You have to know how the world works and why it works that way. So I have this pyramid. It's called the Pyramid of the Universe, and I made it up, but this is what I think everyone needs to understand if they want to manifest their dreams. And it's not popular, but here we go. So the bottom is mathematics, which is the study of the universe. The next one is physics, which is the study of the physical universe. The next is chemistry, which is the study of matter. The next is biology, which is the study of living things. The next is physiology, which is the study of human beings, human body. Then the next is neuroscience, the study of the human brain. Then the next is psychology, the study of the human mind. If you want to make effective decisions to be the most happy, healthy, and productive version of yourself, you have to understand how you work, how other people work, and how the world works. Mm. Because if not, you're like playing chess against a grand chess master who you don't even know what the pieces do. You can't win that game. And so what I try to help people understand is that life is basically this infinite game of studying how you work, how other people work, and how the world works. And if you don't understand those sciences that I just talked about, and it's a pyramid too, by the way, this needs to be clear about a pyramid. The cool part about a pyramid is the bottom has to get wider before the top gets higher. So a lot of people I know, they don't have mathematics. Okay, well, you're in trouble in finance. If you don't know basic mathematics, you are in so much trouble. I never used to say that because everyone gets so triggered. I have empathy. I do. It's just, it doesn't change the fact that you're in trouble. Okay. If you don't know mathematics, the future is going to hurt you. And then the next one's physics up. And so a pyramid, the analogy I use is oxygen, water, food. We need all three, but we don't need them all the same. We need oxygen more than we need water. We need water more than we need food. So it's a pyramid, right? So the bottom of the pyramid would be oxygen. The next would be food, water, and then the next would be food. And so these sciences, what happens when your pyramid has the whole bottom cut off? Now you're driving around with a GPS. You don't have a destination address. You don't have any goals. They're not measurable. They're not achievable. You don't have an accurate current address. You don't have any self-awareness. You don't know where you really are. You need to know where you're going and where you really are. And then you also don't have accurate data on the terrain, like the Garmin back in the day. For those at my age or older, we had these GPSs that didn't have updated data, and they drive you into a mountain or drive you into a lake, or maybe they don't know the detours. So all of us are wondering why we don't have goals and dreams. We don't have accurate data about ourselves, about goals, and the world around us. And so people come to me and they say, I want this goal. And it's like, no, you don't. You actually want this goal. Well, here I am. No, you're actually over here. And by the way in which you were going to try to get to that goal you thought you wanted is not going to work. And so I'm very grateful for the gift that I have, which is this magnificent memory and a very intellectually developed brain that's able to reverse engineer finish lines for people. So now that's what I do for a living. But it always made me scared for my relationships because I never understood how to get along with other people. Because if you're an engineer out there, you understand this, your self-worth is probably low because you don't get along with anybody and you don't know why. And so I think that all of us are either really competent on one end, or we're really socially valued. And so I was very competent, but not socially valued. Some people are fit in easily and they're socially valued, but they don't feel very competent in their careers and stuff. So hopefully that answers your original question. But the key of all of this really comes down to, how do we identify the truth? Listen, success came easy. Anyone who's listening to this knows that. Success was always fairly easy for me. I'm not worried about whether or not I'm going to go to the gym. I'm not worried about whether or not I'm going to be in shape. I'm not worried about whether or not the economy is going to work out for me. I'm worried about my relationships. For me, pain was always social. So there's two types of pain. I'll be quick with this. Either your pain was social and relational, but you believe when you're behind the scenes, you believe in yourself a ton. You're very hardworking, more than anyone knows. You're smarter than anyone thinks, and you're super competent. But you socially don't fit in and never have. And then there's other people that fit in so easily. They're loving, wonderful people who fit in everywhere they go, but they don't have this competence and they don't believe in themselves.
Okay, so obviously you're very intelligent and very capable, but you've mentioned that your wife to be is going to show you the internal world. Can you? And that obviously can very often be the case.
Yeah.
Not always, but very often that is absolutely the case. And it was with me I was married for 51 years until my wife passed. But so go ahead and comment on that, how that works.
Well, 51, congratulations. That's wild. That's amazing. Statistically speaking,
it would have been more, but
yeah, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Of course. There's this quote of your intimate partner is your mirror. And the deeper layers of that is, if you have a great relationship where conflict is constructed into a positive thing, that's where all the growth is. And so I often tell Emilia, and we coach couples too. So we have a podcast called the Conscious Couples Podcast, and it's all about how to help your relationships flourish. And quite frankly, it's mostly her. I mean, I was the engineer guy, math, science, all that. Like, that's easy for me. This stuff never came easy to me. I didn't understand any of this stuff. Now I kind of do, which is really cool. But anyways, so she was internally way more developed than I was, and I was externally way more developed than she was. But here's the thing. She was already very internally well developed, statistically speaking. It's not like she's brilliant. I mean, it's unreasonable. But internal, external. Men in particular, and especially in your day, we weren't encouraged to have a journal. We weren't encouraged to have a diary. We weren't encouraged to feel our emotions and to get a therapist. I often joke, guys can't even ask for directions. You think they're going to get a therapist? The point is that I think statistically speaking, women tend to be far more well-developed in the internal world. And honestly, holistically, I think statistically speaking, women are more well developed. That's my truth. Now, that said, we all have our intimate partner as our mirror. And whenever they bring up a frustration, and I tell you, Amelia, please bring up your frustrations. How do you turn your frustration into fascination and then your fascination into transformation? If there's something she's frustrated with me about, I would much rather her express it. And then we can get fascinated and talk about it. And then I can change or say, I don't really want to change that. But all of the transformation is in the willingness, the humility, courage, and vulnerability to sit in the discomfort of your own inadequacies. If you have low self-belief, though, you're not going to be willing to do that.
By the way, I have to say that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. But if you have low self-belief, you're going to have a really hard time with that. Because, and I never used to know this, people who have high self-belief don't know that they do. So their advice always feels wrong to other people. So like I always gave advice, shoot for the moon, land amongst the stars, set huge goals and dreams. That doesn't work for people who don't have a lot of self-belief. That's like terrible advice, actually. Shoot for the moon and then crumble to the ground and destroy your only self-esteem and self-belief that you do have, right? So the people who are pretending to have the highest self-belief actually don't. It's mostly ego. And the people who have really high self-belief have no idea that they do. It's like this weird, and they get crapped on socially, so they're actually have low self-worth and very mousy.
Yeah.
So anyways, the point that I want to make here is to sit in the discomfort of your own inadequacies requires a tremendous amount of humility and self-belief, and those two rarely go hand in hand. Self-belief is, I know I can do it. But the downside of self-belief, because every strength comes with a weakness, my strength is self-belief. My weakness is arrogance.
Yeah.
My weakness is overconfidence. I've never struggled with self-doubt. I struggle with overconfidence. Right? And so I need humble pie. I need humility. I need to work on humility. The people who have tons of humility, they don't need to work on humility. They need to work on believing in themselves and having confidence and showing up and doing the work. And so all of us are giving each other advice, even though the advice is completely customizable based on the person. That's why I love one-on-one coaching versus a bigger medium like this. And that's why I'm always giving two sides of the coin. Most advice is so polar. It's so like, just believe in yourself. That's the worst advice for someone who already believes in themselves.
Yeah. Or someone who doesn't know how to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I have more questions to ask you, but I want to respect your time. So can you kind of briefly tell us how you would bring someone to the next level in terms of their own health, their own relationships, and their relationship to what's necessary for them in the economy?
So I noticed in your show, you talked about neuroplasticity in the description, and I really adored that. I like that you take an evolutionary approach to like the way in which humans have evolved. I did my research. I like your logo as well. I think that's really cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And again, I'm a nerd, so of course I'm going to like it. So take that with a grain of salt. When it comes to getting to the next level, to succeed in the economy, what I would say instead of that is hopefully everyone out there listening can identify which one is your weaker arm. We're all righty or lefty. So I'm a righty. Okay. And if you want to, you can do the left hemisphere, right hemisphere, creatives versus systems thinkers, all that if you want. Don't overly categorize, but you need categories. It's like this weird duality. Everything's a duality. So if you think that you're of the camp, the category of, I believe in myself a ton, I'm actually more hardworking and smarter behind the scenes than anyone knows, but I'm kind of dialing a lot of that down in order to fit in, then you probably are very professionally developed and you probably struggle with internal trauma that's caused by social pain because you don't really fit in. Okay. If you're on that end, work on the internal world and get a therapist. It's uncomfortable. Trust me, it sucks, but it's worth it. If you're on the other end and you really fit in easily and you feel like everyone likes you, and you're very rarely villainized, most likely you don't believe in yourself much. You don't feel like you're gifted. You don't feel super competent. You're definitely not that confident. You're portraying confidence that you don't really have. And you really need a coach. You need someone who can hold you accountable and who can help you grow, someone who's ahead of you. Because most likely, if you don't believe in yourself, you don't like being around people who do believe in themselves because it makes you so uncomfortable, which is also why the other camp gets villainized, by the way. So if you don't believe in yourself, most likely you have a really hard time liking me. Kevin and I, it's funny, we give speeches together, and let's say there's an audience of 300 people. Everyone likes Kevin more, but he's concerned he didn't add value. I'm not concerned about adding value at all. I know that I'll change your life, but I always get hated. Now, at the end of the day, this is what it comes down to. If you're going to go give a speech in front of 300 people, and I were to say, you have to add value to change these people's lives, 0 to 10, how certain are you could do it? For me, it's 10 out of 10. Now, let me rephrase the question. You're going to give a speech in front of 300 people, and you have to make everyone there not hate you. I would say that is impossible.
Yeah.
Okay. That tells you which camp you're in. If you're in the camp where you feel like it's impossible to be likable, you need therapy. If you're in the camp where you feel like it's impossible to add value and change people's lives, you need a coach. And honestly, we all need both. So that's what I would end with.
Yeah. So it's kind of, you need to find the middle ground between I am neither a very great man nor small.
Yeah.
Because the nor small is powerful too.
I know.
Yeah. So I would like you, because this has been a fascinating discussion. I think there could be much more. I would like you to tell the audience how they can get in touch with you and find out about your coaching, taking people
Thank you.
to the next level. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So next level is exactly what it sounds, which is no matter how hard your past has been, you have a spotless, bright future if you choose it. And to your point, you are not the center of the universe, but you are also not insignificant.
Yeah.
It's a duality.
Yeah.
To live with confidence and humility.
Yeah. That's who you really are.
That's the sweet spot. Yeah. You're not all important, but you're not tiny and insignificant either.
Yeah.
And that's what wisdom is. Wisdom is the center. And unfortunately, in the social media world, everyone's off the rails, right? Yeah. So I understand, but God, the least sexy advice is always the best advice. I promise you that.
Yeah.
So if you like this and everything I've shared, we have a podcast called Next Level University. We have a website called nextleveluniverse.com. Next Level Universe, spelt just like it sounds.com. The person who has Next Level University is asking for way too much money. So we just said nextleveluniverse.com. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. If you type in my name, Alan Lazaros, AlanLazaros, you Google me, I will pop up, and you can find me on any of the social medias, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. So I hope that you reach out. Just please, if you do reach out, please provide context, because like all of us, I get a lot of spam.
All right. So I found this very fascinating. I'm hoping that everyone who was listening also found it very fascinating. We have so much inside of us that we may not have even recognized yet. So, Alan, thank you so much.
Scott, this has been a pleasure. Really, thank you for creating this space to express. And I hope that it helped everyone. Yeah, thank you so much.